it's Katie, and today I'm going to be starting a new project. I'm going to be making sourdough starter. So I'm going to be making a starter completely from scratch. I don't have commercial starter, I don't have starter from a friend. I'm going to be making it with just flour and water and hopefully capturing wild yeast and bacteria from just the air and from the flour and using those wild yeasts to raise my bread instead of buying commercial yeast. So I'm going to be following directions I found online on a website called The Perfect Loaf. This website, The Perfect Loaf, is specifically about sourdough leavened bread. I will link them down below so you can see them for yourself. But it starts off with making a flour blend, and it's just 50% whole grain rye flour and 50% all-purpose flour. So I'm just using my kitchen scale, and I'm going to make up a portion of this flour so I'll have it ready whenever I go to make my feedings, or to do my feedings. So I'm just gonna pick some arbitrary amount to mix up here. Alright, so that's 200 grams of the rye flour, and I will add 200 grams of all-purpose flour. Okay, so now I'm just gonna mix this together so that it's a 50-50 blend. Simple enough. The next step is to weigh your jar so that you can tear out your measurements. My jar is 255 grams. And next I'm going to add, I'll tear this out. I'm going to add 40 grams of this flour mix and 40 grams of filtered dechlorinated water, and then just mix it up. Just make sure there's no dry flour on the bottom. Looks like that. Okay, so now all I have to do is cover it with a breathable cover, so I'm using a cloth napkin and a rubber band. Alright, so that's all I need to do for day one. Check it tomorrow for day two. Morning of day two, we'll check our starter, and there's a few bubbles already, but you know, it's hard to tell if those were just stirred in. That's what the bottom looks like. Not really any bubbles on the bottom, but there are a few on the sides. So what I'm going to do, here's what it looks like from the top. I'm going to take everything except for 40 grams of starter out. Then I'll add 40 grams of flour and 40 grams of water and stir it up. So my jar is 255 grams, so I should measure this and take out enough starter that my total weight is 295 grams because I need 40 grams of starter inside there. Okay, so I have 295. I'll tear that out. I'll add 40 grams of flour and 40 grams of water. Whoops, a little over. That'll be alright. And then supposed to stir it vigorously. So that not only mixes it, but helps incorporate air, which the yeast will need to survive and thrive. And you're supposed to scrape down the sides, but it's a little bit sticky and hard to do. I'll just do the best that I can. Okay, so we'll cover this again and set it aside until tomorrow. Okay, this is day 3. I actually forgot to do this in the morning, so it's about 12 o'clock. You can see there are a few bubbles, small bubbles, all throughout, and lots of bubbles on the surface. This is what it looks like on day 4, right before the feeding. So lots more little bubbles. And there's the surface. And it smells a little sour. It mostly smells like glue from just the flour and the water. But it's starting to pick up a little bit of a sour smell and almost a little bit of an alcohol smell. But so far I haven't seen any brown liquid on the top, which is what happened last time. It's normal, but I haven't noticed it this time. And I'm definitely seeing activity a lot sooner than I saw the last time I'd made it with just using all-purpose flour. So I think the rye is definitely helping in that regard. Here's the sourdough starter on day 5. See, lots of little bubbles. Open it up, look inside. Let's see, get some light in there. Not as many bubbles as there was the other day, but it's a little chilly in my kitchen this morning. So I'll go ahead and feed this, and this will be the last day that I only do a once a day feeding. And on day 5 I actually changed out the jar. I was worried that the stuff that's clinging to the side was contributing to my weight, you know, for my original tear weight. So it's really hard to scrape down the side, so I just put it in a new jar. I weighed this jar, it weighs 1 gram less, so 254 instead of 255, but pretty much exactly the same. So have it nice and scraped down, so hopefully tomorrow, if this does rise up and then fall, I'll be able to see sort of a line of residue higher up on the jar. This is day 6 before the feeding, and then on the surface there's not as many bubbles, so I don't know if that's because it's a little bit thicker and the bubbles aren't making it to the surface. So this is 4 p.m. on day 6, so it's time for the second feeding, and it doesn't look quite nearly as active as it has in days past. Let's see, I don't really even see that many pockets of air through the side or as I scrape the surface. But I'm going to go ahead and give it its second feeding today, so same 40 grams of starter, 40 grams of flour, 40 grams of water. This is the starter before the first feeding on day 8. So this is my poor neglected sourdough starter. I think it's day 8 or 9. I completely ignored it all day. We were out with friends, so it's actually missed 3 feedings now. So really neglected. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this cleaned up, feed it. I'm gonna actually put it in a new jar, feed it the way I'm supposed to, and then I'm gonna make sure that I feed it 3 times tomorrow, and hopefully it bounces back. Alright, so this is day 10. So, and finally, I would call this really nice activity. This is the first time I really feel like it's really getting going. So I'm really happy to see this morning. Like these big bubbles here have me really excited. Here's another good look at my sourdough. Very active. I marked it yesterday, the level it was after I fed it, and it's gone up twice as high. I think it's starting to come down because when I checked it when I first woke up, it was a little bit higher. And I made this dough. This is sourdough English muffins, so I will make these up today. So this has been sitting for about 12 hours. Lots of nice big bubbles all throughout that. So I'll get these ready and bake these this morning. So here's my first loaf of sourdough bread. I made it last night. I think I made the dough a little bit too stiff, so it rose up quite a bit, but I didn't get very much oven spring. You can see I scored it here, and they didn't really open up, but it's got a crusty crust, and I'm going to cut into this and see what it looks like on the inside. So here's the bread all sliced up. As you can see, it's a little bit dense, but it's not the densest loaf of bread I've ever made in my life. But it has a nice crisp crust. The inside is tender and soft and moist. It has a slight sour flavor to it, and we are definitely going to enjoy this. I'm going to try again soon, hopefully improve upon my skills. But if you're thinking about doing a sourdough starter, I highly recommend it, and I recommend the directions that I used. It turned out perfectly. It just took about a week to make, and be sure to get yourself some whole grain rye flour. I think that made a big difference. So I hope you found the video helpful. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer them. And thanks so much for watching, you guys. Bye.